Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Deeper Than Code podcast, where we explore the deeper meaning behind our digital renaissance. With me, your host, Big Papa Code. So excited you're here today. This is episode number 2, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about AI, machine learning, and self-driving cars. So it's going to be a great episode, and we're really going to be talking about the ethical considerations that come along with this new technology. And that's kind of our MO. That's what we do here. So I'm excited. I hope you are too. Buckle up. And without further ado, play my theme music.
It's Jay Nolan. Check me. It's deeper than cold. Yeah. Say it's deeper than cold, We live in our phones, but what if we can make them? Got every app in the world, where's the participation? Looking for representation. Don't overlook the pavement, Silicon Valley was pacing. So join the movement, we ain't got too much time to be wasting. The grind chain, we're trying to buy chains, the blockchains, digital signatures in exchange. Homie, it's not a game. Troopers in the VR, trade with homies in DR. Currency circulating to stay afloat like a seaport. Dog, just look at esports, time to break the walls down. They don't want to play fair, we gotta shut your doors down. Kings and queens learning different things, infiltrate the scene. Everybody rapping for the fame, it's a different dream. Machine learning and algorithms, that's big business. More than just academics, the future's interdependence. Collaboration, no need for elaboration. Our thoughts can establish nations, that's not an exaggeration. Get involved with the tech revolution. Yeah. Opportunity to use I said it's deeper than cold. Get involved with the tech revolution. Yeah. Opportunity to use I say it's deeper than cold, y'all. Get involved with the tech revolution. Opportunity to use it. It's deeper than cold. Get involved with the tech revolution. Yeah. Opportunity to use it or lose it. Yo, we late in the game. Since the 80s evolved to digital. Ever since the computer invention, tech has been pivotal. Changing lives, investing in the enterprise, yeah. But it's a shame that our efforts get minimized, yeah. Black and educated, so y'all can bet I make it. Regardless of any disadvantageous legislation. Our track record is known for overachieving. Leave a window with a crack, we get in and we never leave it. We starting conferences, ready to build confidence. Running business, autonomous. Nipsey Hussle was on it. It's time to establish dominance. We ain't bother with compliments. Should have STEM courses as necessary requirements. Yeah, just imagine when the culture get to make decisions, and all the people we can move into bigger positions. The players' power, but manpower is numbers. The strength is in our community, redirecting our hunger. Yeah. Tech revolution. I said it's deeper than cold. Get involved with the tech revolution. Vibe with me. Opportunity. Yeah. I said it's deeper than cold, y'all. Get involved with the tech revolution. Opportunity to use it or lose it. It's deeper than cold. Get involved with the tech revolution. Yeah. Opportunity to use it or lose it. It's deeper than cold.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Arthur Bernier Jr., aka Big Papa Code, back here again with episode 2 of Deeper Than Code. And today we're talking about AI, we're talking about machine learning, we're talking about self-driving cars. And before we get started, I just want to, bring your attention again to what is the reason why we're here, why are we doing this podcast? Because this might be the first time you're hearing from me, especially if you're coming here from the beginning, because this is only episode number 2, and hopefully it's better than episode number 1. Each one gets better and better. But what we're trying to do with this Deeper Than Code podcast is we are trying to prepare you for the future. We're trying to make sure you understand what's coming down the pipe, so that you don't get blindsided. We got this number that we have in our head that is super important. It's 2032, the year 2032. Keep that number in mind, because in 2032, the world changes, right? In 2032, there's so many different things that are just going to come to a head. And it all starts with just the ages that people are going to be around that time. In 2032, baby boomer generation, those born from 1946 to 1964, they will all have been retired and completely out of the workforce, and almost all of them will be out of any leadership positions, right? So the baby boomers and the way they think about stuff and the world that they grew up in, which is completely different than the world we live in today, is going to it's going to change everything with them not in power. And I don't want to say any mean things, because I love the baby boomer generation. They did a lot of great things. A lot of them had a lot to do with the civil rights movement and things of that nature. And me as a black man, of course, I love that. Of course, there were plenty of people on the other side of the civil rights movement in that generation too. That's the reason why we needed it. But that's neither here nor there. So I won't get into that stuff. But at the end of the day, the baby boomer generation, they don't understand technology innately like the later generations do, and you can't expect them to. And as a result of that, with a lot of them living a whole lot longer and being healthier longer, they are staying in positions of power where they're making decisions about things they don't understand, and they're not, easily turning over the reins and retiring. Now, you got some of them that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and are holding on to a job which pays them $250,000 a year. To me, it doesn't make sense, a lot of it, and they need to pass the baton. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way that they think and the way they see that the next generation is so different than them that they don't want to let things go because they're afraid to, for some reason. But this new world needs new people in charge. And at that point in 2032, they will be completely gone, from those power positions. And only a few of them will be hanging around, the youngest of the baby boomer generation, which, a lot of senses, those born in the early 60s, etc. A lot of them are the best, most technologically, savvy individuals, because in their prime earning years, they had access to technology, right? Because they in the 2000s, dot-com bubbles happening and stuff like that, they're in their 40s, right? Early 40s, they're in their prime earning years, and they, a lot of them helped actually usher in some of that stuff. So that's the baby boomers we want to have the reins, if any of them are. So that's a great thing. So gone will be the days where there is congressional hearings and people are asking questions like, how come when I Google this, this happens? Which isn't the craziest question, but it's a crazy question to ask the CEO of Meta that has nothing to do with Google. And they're not even the CEO of like Apple, so it's not like you could say it's because that's their phone. They don't own that phone. They don't own that service. Why are you asking that person about why this does what it does? So what the heck does Google or an iPhone have to do with Mark Zuckerberg? Doesn't make sense, right? And if you look at that senator's face when they asked that question, they thought they was really eating when they asked that question too. Like, yeah, I got him. Like, and maybe other baby boomers felt that way, but I can tell you the rest of us were like, what are you saying right now? It was a little bit bad, to say the least. I'll just put it that way. So, that change will happen. Then you have the Gen Xers, which will start retiring. So you got the Gen X generation from 65 to 82. They're going to start retiring little by little. And they're going to be, that prime group from 77 to 65. And really 65, 67 is probably the biggest one to look at. But that group from 76 really, to 65, they are going to be, in their mid-50s and looking at retirement, etc. And some of them have already going to be started to retire, and they're going to be up there in age. And then you have the ones from 77 to 82 are going to be 55, all the way to 50. And that's the Zennial generation, and there aren't that many of them at the end of the day. There just aren't. And, because of the way that the birth numbers went. So you have that group, but that group has grown up with technology their entire life, so their affinity to it and their understanding to it is going to be different. Because those people born in 77, for example, 2000, 2001, you got .com stuff happening. 2003, you got the war. You have, subprime mortgage crisis when they turn 30. Like, they've been through it right along there with the millennials. They weren't that much older, and they understand, and they've grown up there. They've been in the workforce with technology the entire time. They've never been at a job and the internet didn't exist, or the internet wasn't plentiful. And there wasn't e-commerce. That world has never existed for that group of people. And they were some of the biggest groups of individuals trying to push e-commerce and all this stuff out. And a lot of those people will be in positions of power. But the main group is going to be the millennial generation. And that millennial generation has never known a world without technology. They've had technology since they were in high school, junior high school, etc., depending on their age. And they definitely never been a part of the workforce without those pieces of technology. So the world that they understand is completely different. And then the Gen Zs that are going to be the youngest part of the workforce, I mean, do I need to even say anything about the TikTok generation, etc.? You got those people born in 2010 are going to be 22 years old at that point in time. And with all this changing, also that means the congressional map, or the map of the country, the electoral college map, is just going to be completely different. People, the thought process of the people that are making up that electoral college and, voting in different ways, at least in America, is going to be completely different. So with that said, you need to understand that that the world's going to change whether you like it or not, because the people that already think differently are going to now have a voice in a different way. And you can even look back to Barack Obama winning the presidency. When I was 20 years old when that happened, and there was a whole bunch of us that, it was our first time being able to vote, and we definitely swung some numbers as a result of, our group being able to do that. And that group from 2008, that born from 2008 to 2012, 2014, are going to make a big difference in that 2032 election. So that's going to be very, very interesting to see that group from 2008, basically the group that they were born, at the beginning of the Great Recession, and have never lived in a world where there hasn't been a black president and where Donald Trump has never not been a president. They don't they live their way that they understand the world is different, and what they've seen on the news is different. They have different thoughts of hope and future that are positive and negative, and it's going to change things. And so trying to map that out is an interesting thing, but it's going to be a big inflection point. So when we think about what that means for AI and machine learning, keep in mind, look at what AI is doing right now. And these kids that are like 11 and 12 years old are never going to grow up in a world where AI is science fiction. AI is going to be science fact for them. It's a thing they're going to have grown up their whole life understanding. Yeah, talk to somebody from that generation now, and tell them that back when you were a kid, you used to have to wait for the for your television episode to come on, and not just wait for it to come out and be released on the streaming platform. You used to have to be in front of the TV at 8 p.m. and if you were 2 minutes late, you missed the first 2 minutes of the episode, right? You couldn't pause the television unless you were rich and you could afford a TiVo or something like that. Or if you had a VCR, you could record it when you weren't there and you could program it. Like, you had to be in front of the TV to watch your show at your time. And if you weren't there, right, you were not able to see it. that is a complete different world that people lived in. Now people can watch the show 3 times in a row if they want, binge watch a season. They can wait, do this. Like, there's so much autonomy that people have now that was not a thing, a few years ago, and it's changed the way the world works, changed the way money works, changed a lot of things. And so keep in mind that these people are going to grow up in a world where that is commonplace. It's not just like something that they understand, is new. It's just going to be something they understand as being fact. They understand social media is fact. Twitter followers is fact. IG is fact. TikTok is fact. YouTube is fact. They understand that that's something that's always been there and is never, and for, as far as they're concerned, is never going anywhere and has never been anywhere else. That is a crazy thing to think about. If you're an adult in 2023, to think that those people that are growing up then will be those adults, and they're going to be making decisions and buying houses and renting apartments, starting careers, and that's a beautiful thing, and I'm excited for it. But just understand it's going to change the way the world works because they have the numbers to make a difference. There's enough of them to make a difference. So the way that they see the world is going to really change things. And we also need to understand is everything is not always about your generation, because Gen X doesn't really have the numbers to make a move the same way. The millennial generation kind of does. But once the millennial generation, the Gen Xers, and the Gen Z are the primary people of the country, numbers are going to be very different about how things get voted on, how people feel, what things are perceived as offensive, what things are perceived as fact, etc. Like the world will be a different world. So keep that in mind. And one of the big movers of this future is going to be AI and machine learning. Like this week alone, there've been major advancements in AI and machine learning. This week now, where today it's September 24th, when I'm recording this, and you've had Microsoft Copilot. Microsoft is really making a push for AI. They're incorporating it into the Windows platform, which has the biggest market reach. Pretty much everybody uses Windows unless they use Mac, and most people are buying a Windows computer nowadays. They have big market share, and every single product that they use, that is on Windows now, is going to be AI enabled. It'll be able to suggest lines of code when you're writing code. It'll be able to help you out when you're doing Microsoft Word. It's going to just be ingrained into the world. It's not going to be science fiction anymore or something cool in movies. It's going to be commonplace inside of Windows. And that is crazy, right? You also have Alexa. Right now, you probably get annoyed by the way Alexa works, but Alexa is getting a big upgrade and becoming AI enabled. So that means that Alexa is going to learn from you. Alexa is going to continue to gather data from large pools of information and supply you with information and really be able to have a conversation with you at a different level than it can right now. And skills, Alexa skills, if you know anything about that, is probably going to take a back seat to all this AI integrations. You also got DALL-E 3, which is going to be a game changer, for sure, and bring new users into ChatGPT and OpenAI. There's going to be, you're going to be able to generate images and do all this. There's so many things you're going to be able to do, but there's going to be commercial limitations, of course, to make sure things are, it's not, infringing on copyrights and things of that nature, which is something we're going to get into. But then you've got Bard coming, also trying to, gain ground on OpenAI. Seems like they might be missing the ball a little bit. So is there going to be a shift in who's the big power player in the world. Like companies have always said for a long time now that you pretty much can't get rid of Google. Google is like the biggest company in the world, and or the company that you really just have to work around because everybody likes to Google. But now you have Gen Zs. Most of them like to look up stuff on TikTok, maybe YouTube, some of them as well, but TikTok or YouTube more than they'll go to Google to find an answer. You also got OpenAI, who's taking market share because instead of somebody Googling something, they probably rather ask ChatGPT. So all these things are just making a substantial difference in the way that the world is working, and every single week there's a new AI advancement. So you really have to consider what this really means. So kind of kicking that off, you really got to look underneath the hood and really just say, okay, AI, machine learning, like what does that mean for me? As an individual. So if you want to picture AI, you can kind of picture AI as like the grand conductor of an orchestra. It's carefully guiding each instrument that we use in our lives. And then machine learning, you kind of think of that as like a practice session that hones each musician's skill, that just continues to make these things better and better and better, and learn and learn and learn. I can go into more depth if you want to, get the super detailed code analysis stuff and talk about building projects and stuff like that. With machine learning, that's something you're interested in, then check out some of my other videos where you can write some code and do those things. But this is more for everyone, not for people that just want to write code, because there's a lot more things that AI is gonna involve beside coding, and there's a lot more opportunities that you don't have to be a software engineer, be a data engineer, be a data scientist in order to take advantage of. But one of the big things I want to talk about there is self-driving cars, right? Because self-driving cars are like where all of that stuff kind of syncs together. All those algorithms synced up together in perfect harmony and really touch us in the real world, right? So with that being said, like what's the pros and cons to self-driving cars? And I really think self-driving cars are actually going to make the road safer when everybody's using a self-driving car and not just some people. Because when some people are doing it, you still have all the, the variables on the road, which are the, other people driving. You've probably seen iRobot. You've seen, everybody had a self-driving car. And then when, Will Smith tries to take over, the wheel to go on a police chase, they say, please don't do this. This is, dangerous. Do you know what you're doing? You sure you want to drive, etc. And that'll be the way the world is, where it's like considered safer to let the computer drive the car than it is for you to drive the car. I mean, we already got autopilots on planes and things of that nature, and cars are going to be on autopilot. But there's a lot of ethical questions here that you need to be mindful of. And especially if you are an Uber driver or a Lyft driver and you really rely upon that income for your future, the days on that are numbered, because you may not understand this, but Uber is a large company. Everybody knows it, does a lot of numbers in revenue, but it's still never made a profit, doesn't make a profit. And the reason why they don't make a profit is because they have to pay the drivers. And the number one thing that they're trying to do, the reason why they can keep raising money and people keep, keeping them afloat, because they're putting money into betting on self-driving cars and being able to build self-driving autonomous cars, because they want to get rid of or greatly reduce the number of drivers on the road. And 2032 is going to be a big pivotal change there, because at that point, this technology for self-driving cars, et cetera, is going to be very mature, and there's a very good chance that they go 100% autonomous by that time. The political climate will probably be helpful for them to do that, and with the number of self-driving cars already going to be on the road, it's going to be at a high number. etc. The cost numbers are definitely going to be driving to it, because the moment they get rid of drivers, they immediately become a profitable company. The moment they don't have to pay drivers, and you do a $30 ride, the $30 goes to Uber. It's going to make sense. And then also they're going to be able to be profitable and still lower prices than they are now, which is going to make people which is going to slowly get people to start to pick to not have a driver as opposed to have a driver, when they can still choose between the two, because they're going to say, oh, if I don't have a driver, the ride is cheaper, right? And that's going to make Uber more money, make them more profitable. There's a lot of things there. Not financial advice, but if you want to make a good long-term bet, if you think Uber is going to figure it out, which I think there's a good chance they will, if it's not going to be them, trust me, somebody else is going to do it. So either Uber is going to go the way of Blockbuster, or they're going to figure that out. But I guarantee you, self-driving cars are going to take over rideshare, right? So if you are relying upon that, you need to think about doing something else. 100% you need to think about doing something else. You need to think about how you're going to set yourself up to generate revenue in a different way. Do not count on that for the long term. This was never something that was going to last 80 or 100 years. Always was temporary. Always was a temporary gig. Make sure that you understand that. Now, of course, there's going to be regulatory roadblocks to getting this together. There's going to be a lot of legal stuff and legal frameworks to navigate. And when you marry tech and machinery, you need a prenup. And that's where regulation comes in. Like, that real challenge is going to be striking a balance between safety, innovation, and ethics. And it's going to be a three-way tug of war. But keep in mind who's going to be in power when that happens, right? Because the intersection of technology and regulation is where that rubber meets the road. But who's going to be in power when those decisions are getting made? And when those decisions are getting made, even if some decisions get made beforehand by the baby boomers, right? Those things can be overturned, and they will be if they don't fall in line with what the next group of people think should be. Especially when we see all these other countries that have a different makeup and are able to jump the gun on us earlier on in the 2020s, etc. And we're just losing out in the world if we don't make changes quickly. There's going to be there's going to be something there that is going to spark change. Let's just put it that way. And these regulations that are going to need to be created are going to start to be created by people who were born in 1998 and 2001. Those numbers are significant because that's people being born when AOL, first was doing its thing, when the .com bust had already happened, that have never grown up in a world where there was not technology, and they're going to be the ones making the decisions. So they are going to see technology and technological advancement differently, right? So you have to be prepared for the way that's going to look. So be careful, right? The intersection of technology and regulation, it's where the rubber is going to meet the road, and you need to be prepared for a world where the people writing those regulations for these technologies, right, are people that have grown up with the technology their entire life, and they understand it differently. They don't have to get taught it. They don't need to hold a congressional hearing for it. It's part of their life, and they understand the way that world works. And it's going to be very interesting, right? Now, also you have to think about where democracy comes in, and because tech democracy isn't just about access; it's also about equitable impact, right? Tech should not be a gated community. Self-driving cars could change the lives of those with mobility issues, right? Imagine the freedom it could offer to elderly people or those with disabilities. But we have to guard against that digital divide where we expand so fast without thinking about secondary impacts. And when you think about the positive and the negative impacts. But some of those positive impacts are, hey, grandma can drive herself around now because she doesn't actually have to drive. She can just get in the car. She can go to where she needs to get to. She does not need Access-a-Ride. If you're from New York City, you know what that is. She doesn't need this, doesn't need that. She can just get in her car, go to where she needs to go. She can arrive safely, etc. There's even going to be, potentialities where you can program and keep track of where grandma's going in the car, without you having to be there in person. It's going to be a beautiful thing to help take care of elderly people. And of course, like I said, people with disabilities, they'll be able to get into a car on their own and be able to go where they need to go without the need for somebody to take them there. It's going to open up that opportunity for them. And that's one of the major reasons why there's going to be an adoption of self-driving cars faster than you think, because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to benefit from that. But that human element, there's probably going to be people from different locations. Like, for example, like I said, rideshare drivers. You, of course, have taxi, limousine individuals, etc., that are really going to be scared of this. And it makes sense for them to be scared of it because this is something that is inevitably happening, and you might try to push back and try to keep it from occurring. And that might work for a little bit of time, but it won't work for the long term. And unfortunately, that's one of the truths of technology, is that technology is great, but it always is going to displace some jobs and create new jobs. Like people that, did a lot of skilled labor jobs, were definitely really against, assembly line manufacturing. And they definitely fought against it for a long time. But you can see that is the norm now because people want cheap stuff, right? People are also going to want cheap trips. And the easiest way to make your trip cheaper is to not have to pay a driver, unfortunately. So if that's the way you make your living, make sure that you're planning from now. And that's the reason why I'm putting this podcast together, to make sure people understand you can't fight this. For example, a friend of mine, Liberty Madison, she talks about not getting blockbustered. It's a really, really great, message that she always has about not getting blockbustered. And Blockbuster actually had the opportunity to buy Netflix before Netflix became Netflix. And they passed on it because they said people aren't going to do that thing. They're not going to order, DVDs by mail. And then eventually they're not going to stream video, etc. Blockbuster tried to eventually make their own website that they tried to do those things. They were too late and they couldn't get the market share and they went out of business. Because what it all comes down to is things change. And when something better and more efficient comes, you have to understand that the efficiency is always going to win, and efficiency is going to win one way or the other. Let's say if we don't embrace efficiencies when they come out. Trust me, another country is, other people will, and it's either we embrace those efficiencies and we grow. That's the reason why we ended up taking over after World War II, because we, did all the manufacturing things that I just talked about. If we didn't do that, we wouldn't have become the powerhouse that we are today. So we can't get in the mindset where we think that we can't change now, which some of us are getting into, and they don't want to change. But if you don't, somebody else is just going to take our place, supplant us, and there goes the American empire, right? Falls just like every other empire, the Roman Empire, etc. No empire lasts forever. But if you want it to last longer than right now, the only way that is going to occur is by continuing to embrace technological advancement. That's what's made America what it is today. So keep that inside your mind that we really can't fight it. So there is, of course, going to be a world where self-driving and human-driven cars coexist, and where they can complement each other, and you can maximize the strengths and weaknesses of both. But when it comes to rideshare, I don't think that's going to be one of them. Of course, there's going to be people on the road that just like to drive their own car, and I don't see that becoming illegal anytime soon. But of course, if every car is self-driven, it ends up changing the world where it's almost like we're always on the train tracks, which are generally safe because the train's got to follow a certain path and do things a certain way. And all your cars will do the same thing to get you to where they have to go. They'll follow the same paths. There'll be less accidents because all the cars are operating the same general software and behaving the same general way, following the same speed limits, going similar speeds, using the same rules to decide when they're going to yield and when they're not. All of that is going to make, the road safer and lead to less accidents and things of that nature. So I obviously see a world where, where that happens. So you also got to think about the fact of, as we continue to make our way into this brave new world we're moving into, that technological shifts are going to continue to happen. In the middle of when I'm going through this podcast, there's going to be more and more new technological advancements that are going to occur. And these technological advancements are really societal transformation, like they're society growing. And how we navigate the implications of self-driving cars speaks to the world that we want to build. The way that we deal with AI and all of the ethical considerations we need to have for AI, and making sure that the world stays safe. That is the way that we are, programming our society. Like, we're not just programming machines, we're reprogramming society itself with this technology. And everybody needs to be involved in that process, right? Not just the elites, not just the smart people, if you want to call them that, or I guess I'm in the tech industry, you call us that, right? It needs to be everybody needs to be involved in this programming of society, right? So keep that in mind. Every single piece of technology has an ethical constraint or ethical consideration we need to have. And sometimes in the past, we haven't considered those that well, right? When we were first creating the internet, nobody was thinking about internet porn. So you may have a positive or negative opinion of that, but that wasn't what we were thinking. And then, you know what? A whole generation of young kids were able to get porn for free with no consideration because, people just put naked people on the internet, and you were able to consume as many naked people as you wanted to consume on the internet. And that is something that, that wasn't thought about, when we first were thinking about these things. When the web was first created, we weren't thinking about doing transactions on the web. There was no thought about, having the rails for economic transactions, right? And that's something that wasn't thought about. We didn't think about the ethical considerations of people spreading misinformation, right? With having open communication, right? The implications of people presenting themselves as somebody they're not, catfishing, etc. These are all ethical things that, have transformed parts of our society. And we need, and now the people that are going to be in charge have lived through all those things and understand those are things that have to be thought about. And so now when we get into the world of AI, how do we continue to grow as a world where people can just press buttons, and when they press buttons, they can just get answers, and they may not actually know whether or not those answers are true or not, and they just take it for granted. So if the AI doesn't always tell the right answers, that could cause problems. What if AI starts spitting out things from the past that aren't truthful, and giving false testimony on things that occurred in the past. All these are things that we have to consider and think about. And there's some simple answers to how we can fix those things, but it also all comes into the ethical considerations of people building the technology. And we need to hold those people accountable to the technology that they build, and make sure they build technology that is safe for us to be foundational for society. We need to get to we also need to make sure that, with this free and open, communication that we have in the world, that we're able to still have objective truth and be able to, tell people that 1 + 1 is 2 and 1 + 1 is not 3, right? And that's something that we need to make sure is built into AI, because you don't want AI really coming up with subjective information, and because that could cause some trouble. Even though some people would fight against me on that, but I think you want to leave creativity to humans, and you want to leave objective facts to AI. So there's some ethical things that we need to understand as we do that. So as we kind of move into the end of this, we could think about some things that we kind of learned today. And it's not really that we learned some things. We just brought some things to our attention. But we talked about AI. We talked about machine learning. And we, of course, kept talking about 2032. We need to be prepared for 2032. There is so many shifts that are going to happen there. And in America, that is going to be one of the most important elections of all time. You have the completely phased out baby boomers. And a lot of them are going to unfortunately have passed on and have definitely stopped, being productive members of society any longer and are in their twilight years. You have Generation X, starting to phase out. You have the millennial generation being the majority of the workforce along with Gen Z. It's just going to be a different world, and I'm very interested to see how that's going to work. I'm just interested to see what happens in 2024. Very interested. That's going to be pivotal. 2028, interested in that. But 2032, that is going to be significant. What happens in 2032? If you are a third-party candidate, that might be your best opportunity to start campaigning for 2032 now, and really getting that younger generation to believe in the ability to overturn the two-party system. It's no better time than then if that is your goal. It's going to be very, 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 very interesting, right? So all this isn't just about gears, gadgets, and code. It's about the blueprint of the world that's being created right in front of our very eyes. So stay woke, as people used to say. It's turned into something else now. Let's stay woke, stay informed, and let's shape the future together. Please keep joining me on this journey where we're going through the foundational stuff now. We want to dive deeper into some things. We're not done talking about AI. But we don't want to make these episodes too long. Otherwise, people won't listen to them if we make them too long. So the future is being coded today, but the key that's going to unlock it lies in each one of us, right? It's not just it's not just about Mark Zuckerberg writing the code for Facebook. It's about the way all the creators that got onto the platform really took over it and built all these amazing businesses and led the way for all these other social media platforms. That all happened because of the ingenuity, not of just the people that wrote the technology, but how people leveraged the technology. And it's not just about the technology existing, it's about the people that leverage it as well. It's not just about the people that make the picks and shovels. It's also about the people that, took those picks and shovels and dug up gold during the California gold rush that made it what it is, or made it what it was. So feel free to keep looking at our later episodes. I'm really looking forward to next week. Next week is going to be crazy. Things that we're going to start to cover next week. I'm so excited for what's coming down the pipe, what's going to be here in the future. And thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate you being here. You have no idea how much I appreciate you being here with me on this journey. If you want to support what it is that we're trying to do, definitely make sure you check me out on Amazon Kindle. Buy a book. Even if you don't read it. I think they're good. But buy one of my books on Kindle. All of them are between the prices of $4.99 and $7, so nothing crazy. Download my audiobooks on Audible if you want. If you like the sound of my voice, you can hear it a little bit more rehearsed and not live. So maybe you might prefer that as well. But support if you can. But just being here and listening to me right now is supporting me. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. If you're listening to it on Spotify, thank you. If you are doing one or the other, go ahead and give me a view on YouTube if you listen to it on Spotify. And if you are on YouTube, go ahead and give me a listen on Spotify. I'd appreciate it. I'm not really promoting the Spotify link. So, pretty much anybody that finds the Spotify is either coming from YouTube or, you just found me by accident. And I appreciate you. For money reasons, though, we're going to go ahead and, promote outwardly the YouTube because, YouTube, monetization, money, etc. But hey, you can get monetized on Spotify too. I'd appreciate that. So with all that said and done, appreciate you all. You all have a great day. Have a great evening, whatever time it might be for you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of Deeper Than Code. Peace.
Involved with the tech revolution. Opportunity to use it. It's deeper than code. Get involved with the tech revolution. Yeah. Opportunity to use it or lose it. Deeper than code.